we can expect this rally to continue until August 26th. Then what? Today is August 21st. The market did break through the resistance level at 0.618 of the decline. It did rally above 5,600, which we anticipated. And at this point, it is pretty much following the time schedule that the cycles were indicating, which was it would make a high on the 19th. It did come down for one day after that. And the rest of the week into early next week, we'd expect to see some sideways to up movement, not necessarily dramatic. It's a topping pattern being formed, and we're expecting a decline immediately after this topping pattern into the September 18th Fed announcement. And it could be a reasonable decline coming into that point. There are numerous cycles that are similar. First of all, we have the pattern from 10 years ago, 2014, and you can see how for the last 6 months or so it's been very similar, and this is what it does next. There's a similar pattern that's based on similar planetary configuration in 2005, where the nodes were in the same place 19 years ago, and it's the same as it was in 2014. And what does it do next? Very much the same thing. There's a decline into the late part of September and potentially into early October. However, there's a bounce after the Fed meeting. So that Fed meeting is likely to be somehow bullish, for at least for a short period. And then looking at 1999, 25 years ago, the same pattern and the same similar astrology took place. Again, the market had a very similar pattern in the past and a very similar pattern going forward. So there's quite a bit of evidence to support a decline coming, even though it looks really bullish right now. We're still anticipating what we originally said. Also, we mentioned Mercury is retrograde until the 27th of August, which is keeping buoyancy, keeping the market in an upward trend. And we also mentioned that there have been days where Mercury retrograde is also very close to the sun. This is an interesting astrological event. So roughly every 2 months, the Mercury goes forward and kind of is combust, runs into the conjunction with the sun, then it goes past, and then it comes retrograde about 2 months later and is conjunct with the sun. Turns out when Mercury goes forward and transits the conjunct the sun, the market tends to go up after that. And when it goes forward and then reverses and comes backward and runs into the sun, that tends to create a bearish pattern for a few weeks. And that just happened last Sunday, this Sunday, a couple days ago. So it indicates the probabilities are high that there will be a decline. The decline doesn't have to happen immediately. It could wait until the end of the retrograde period. But that's also another indication that the market is likely to go down. Okay. Now we're talking about the 1998 pattern, and that is a much more dramatic and bearish looking thing, but the timing has been very similar and is likely to be similar. We also were talking about the 49-week cycle, which is still very, very accurately repeating. We said that it would rally up above the 4,600 equivalent, and it did. And now it's doing what it did back then, which is it went down a little, then it goes up again until next week, and then there's a high next week, and it starts to come down rather dramatically. And interestingly enough, the first low in that pattern is the equivalent of September 18th this year, 49 weeks ago, is repeating. And what's also interesting is 49 weeks ago, at the same point in the cycle, the Mercury was retrograde and combust. The equivalent of Sunday happened at that time as well, and that was the trigger for the initial start of the decline. But the decline doesn't really get going until one more rally, and that rally is about a week after the 19th. So it could be the 25th, 26th, 27th that we see the final high before some sort of change point. It's also around Labor Day. People get back to work. There's a lot of things that are going to change right at the end of August, which is historically not uncommon. September and October are often the weakest months for the stock market. Not every year, but quite a few years. And there's no reason to think that won't happen, at least in September. All right? So that's our update. Have a good week trading.